Namo tasse bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhasse. Namo tasse bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhasse. Namo tasse bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhasse. Good morning, everybody. Good evening, everybody. Today you are joining with another episode of Dhammapariyesanā Series. Especially this part of the Dhammapariyesanā Series is called Abhidhamma for Daily Life. And in today's talk, I will be discussing about Cetasikas and what is a Cetasika, and the first category of Cetasika, which we call Añña Samāṇa Cetasika. So Cetasika basically means mental factor. So I would say Cetasika is a mental factor. Cetasikas, they are mental factors. They cannot, I would say, when we go back to the Chittas cannot arise or exist or cease without Cetasikas. So it is always Cetasikas and Chittas work together. Without the participation of Cetasikas, Chittas will not be able to act or arise, exist, or cease. So the participation of Cetasika towards the Chitta is mandatory. Otherwise, Chittas won't be able to operate, function. So with that in mind, I want to go to the slide. Today, I prepared a very simple slide because I'm going to be talking a lot about each. Okay, so there are 52 mental factors or Cetasikas, as you can see. First, I'm giving you an introduction about what Cetasika is all about in more details. The second ultimate reality, which is called Cetasika, is mental factors, because we know ultimate reality is what the Abhidhamma is all about. So there are four main ultimate realities: Chitta, consciousness; Cetasika is mental factor; Rupa is matter; and Nibbana is nirvana, awakening. And in that the list of ultimate realities, Cetasika represents the second. And this is what I shared with you a moment ago. Chittas can emerge, remain, and die without the help of Cetasikas. And you will be able to see this particular connection in the next slide. In any case, we need to comprehend that Chittas are essential, since Cetasikas help in the comprehension of the object, relying on Chitta, which is the central cognitive component. So, the participation of Cetasika towards Chitta plays a central cognitive part of the cognition process, or the cognitive process. And there is a nice simile for this connection. The model for this association is contrasted with that between a king and his entourage, I would say retinue. Despite the fact that one can say that the king is coming, let's say the king and his army, I would say the king and his retinue, the king is coming. The king doesn't come along, yet he generally comes joined by his army or security or retinue. Similarly, Chitta never emerges alone, yet consistently joined by its retinue of Cetasikas or entourage, which means the king here, represents the Chitta, and the security or retinue entourage represents the Cetasikas. So you can now understand, even you can see the king here but king can't come without his security. So security or retinue or his personnel, they are the army or the retinue. So they are the Cetasikas in this example. So Cetasikas and Chitta, they were together all the time. And then we'll be moving on to the next slide. Okay, so the relationship between Chitta and Cetasika. So here you can see Chitta and Cetasika, consciousness and mental factor, they arise together. Arising together with consciousness, we call it Ekutpada. And they cease together, ceasing together with consciousness, Ekanirodha. And they have the same object, having the same object as consciousness, Ekalambana. Having the same base as consciousness, Ekavattaka. So Chitta and Cetasika, they connect very much. That's why they rise together, they cease together. They're having the same object. They take the same object, and they have the same base as consciousness. So now you can understand how related both Chitta and Cetasika. Okay, so these are the Cetasikas. Now you can see there are three categories: Añña, Samāṇa, Akusala, and Sobana. So Añña, Samāṇa has 30, Akusala has 40, Sobana has 25. Let me drag myself here. And today we're going to be talking this part only, Añña, Samāṇa part, which means the ethically variable factors. They are common to all of the Cetasikas. But Akusala Cetasikas are only pertain to Akusala. Sobana are only pertain to Sobana. So basically, Añña, Samāṇa is translated as being the ethically variable factors, or I would say common to the other. It has 7 Sabbajita Sadharana, which we call it universals, and 6 Pakinnakas or miscellaneous. That means these 7 are engaged in all the Chittas, all the Chittas here, here, and here. But these ones are only employed, used in a particular positive Kusala type of thoughts, mostly. And Akusala has 4 for the Moha, 3 for Lobha, and 4 for Dosa, and 3 for the rest of. So there is no particular sense of those Cetasikas. So it's a rest. Sobana 25 is mostly for wholesome part, 19 Sobana Sadharana, 3 Virati, 2 Apamanya, and 1 Panya. We will be talking these Sobana, 25 Sobana Cetasikas in a different discussion. Also the Akusala, 14 Akusala Cetasikas. Okay. These are the 3 parts. Okay. So you can see the ethically variable factors, which means Añña, Samāṇa Cetasikas. Now, why they are called Añña, Samāṇa? Añña, Samāṇa means that they are common to the other Cetasikas across all the categories. So how it goes? It goes this way. So the non-beautiful Cetasikas, I would say, it could be Akusalas. They are common. I mean, these Añña, Samāṇa Cetasikas, ethically variable factors, are common to the both non-beautiful and the beautiful. So the non-beautiful Chittas are called other in relation to the beautiful Chittas, and the beautiful Chittas are called other in relation to the non-beautiful Chittas. So they are common to each other, and also they work depending on the particular Chittas. Let's say if it is wholesome, now as we already know that in the Kamasovana Chittas, they are wholesome. Añña Samāṇa Cetasikas, most of them, they employ in the wholesome part the way how the Chittas born them to be. And when you go to unwholesome part, akusala part, they also work with the akusala Chittas. So they're going to be used in the way how the roots, the hetus are influenced in those particular chittas. So that's why they call common to the other. So let's say the common to non-beautiful in relation to beautiful, or beautiful to non-beautiful. Also, they are being used depending on the hetus of different chittas. So the first part under the ethically variable factors occurring Añña Samāṇa Cetasikas is Sabbacita Sadharana. There are 7. We can see them here. There are 7 Sabbacita Sadharana Cetasikas, 7 universals. Phassa, Vedana, Sañña, Cetana, Ekaggata, Jivitindriya, and Manasikara. So, what is Sabbacita Sadharana? Now, this part, which is called Sabbacita Sadharana, they are common to all the Cetasikas. Now, Añña Samāṇa is ethically variable factors, but here, Sabbacita Sadharana, they are common to all the other Cetasikas. We basically know that they perform the most rudimentary and essential cognitive things across all the Cetasikas. Without these 7, the Chittas can operate, function pretty much. So the first one is Phassa. Phassa means contact, but this is not the normal contact we know in the general sense, right? So this is basically the touching part of the consciousness. Now we know normally when the consciousness mentally touches the object that has appeared in regard to eye, ears, nose, tongue, body, and mind, there is a sort of mental touching. So that mental touching is called Phassa at this point. And there is something really interesting I want to share with you. In each Cetasikas, we're gonna be describing any of the Cetasikas based on under 4 main aspects: characteristic, function, manifestation, and proximate cause. So each Cetasika mental factor has a characteristic, function, manifestation, and a proximate cause. Okay, so when it comes to contact, which is called Phassa, we know the characteristic of Phassa is to touch. So touching is the characteristic of Phassa. It is not just a contact. So basically, when it comes to Phassa as a mental factor, it really means the mental touching part. So consciousness is touching the object mentally. So that is what we call Phassa. And it is not the contact that we know in the Sutta Pitaka teachings, like in the Patisamuppada. The function of Phassa, contact, is impingement. So when you know that consciousness is mentally touching the object, there is an impingement between the consciousness and the object. Manifestation is the concurrence of consciousness. So there is a concurrence of the consciousness. And proximate cause is going to be the object field that has come into the focus. So there is an object field which happens because of the consciousness and with this impingement. So that is what we call Phassa. Basically, what you have to understand is Phassa generally means mental touching. So in a chitta, in each chitta, there is a mental touching part. So that is what we call Phassa. And what is Vedana? Vedana is normally introduced as the affective mode in which the object is experienced. Now we know there are three types of Vedanas. We call them second. We call them pleasant, unpleasant, and neutral. And the characteristic of Vedana is being felt. We know with each Vedana, we feel something, and then the quality of being felt. And the function of Vedana is experiencing the aspect of the particular object in regard to a feeling. Manifestation is relishing of the associated mental factors. So you are relishing those, other mental factors based on the feeling. Now, if you go to the chittas, we know Somanasa means pleasant, Domanasa means what you call unpleasant, and Upekha means neutral. And the proximate cause is tranquility. So tranquility is what people wanted to attain with a feeling. Now there's a formal example given by the commentarians. How Vedana, how Vedana, takes predominance, among the other Cetasikas. It is like a cook prepares a dish for a king, and the cook can only samples the food that he is making for the king, but the king can enjoy the meal as much as he likes. So the king is, compared to the feeling, Vedana, and the rest of the Cetasikas, I would say, Cetasikas except Vedana, all the other 51 Cetasikas, they are considered to be the cook, the person who is only having a small bite of the food just for sampling. So that means Vedana is such a very important Cetasika, because we see it in all the Chittas. And then Sanya. I don't think I want to show you right away everything, because you already saw these 7 universals, which you call Cetasikas, and we already talked about Passa, which means contact, and then we just talked about Vedana, feeling, and then now we're talking about Sanya. So Sanya basically means perception, and there we need to talk about those 4 aspects, which we talked about by characteristic, function, manifestation, and proximate cause. So characteristic of Sanya is the perceiving of the qualities of the object. Now we perceive things, so the characteristic is to perceive the qualities of the object. And the function of Sanya is twofold. One is make a sign as a condition for perceiving again that this is the same. Let's say one is trying to make a knot of everything. So that is one type of function in Sanya. The second is recognizing what has been previously perceived. Now when you already make a knot, then when you meet it again, when you see it again, and you are remembering the particular Sanya again. So that's what we call the function of Sanya, which is twofold. And the manifestation is the interpreting of the object by way of the features that have been apprehended. So now when you have a history of what those particular things could be under Sanya, then you have this interpreting nature of the particular object. That is the manifestation. Proximate cause is the object as it appears. So you are perceiving things mostly the way how you make note of them. So that particular object, how it appears, is going to be your proximate cause. So the example which is given to understand Sanya is the carpenter's recognition of certain kinds of boots by the mark he has made on him. So he's making is marking the particular, log or timbo, whatever, with different marks, and then that is what we call Sanya. And then, so just as the carpenter marks each place of the particular wooden thing, and we are making notes of everything, and then we are using the previous ones, we are understanding, and we are making note of new things. That is Sanya. It is also a Cetasika. And then Cetana. Cetana is the most significant mental factor because it is where we make karmas. So it's the volitional part. Cetana means volition, as I mentioned in the introduction at the beginning. So volition or Cetana determines the ethical nature, ethical quality of any mental, I would say, of any action. So when you bring the volitional part into any chitta, then there is a big impact into those each chitta. So there are 4 aspects, as I shared with you in the previous Cetasikas. First, characteristic part. So we know the state of willing is the characteristic of Cetana, and the function is to accumulate the karma. Manifestation is coordination of different karmas, and the proximate cause is going to be associated states. So basically, the proximate cause is mostly the associated states by which the volition is going to be a part of, and then the associated states that arise because of the influence of volition. Okay, that's Cetana. And then we're going to be talking Ekagata. Ekagata means, what is the word that we use for Ekagata in here? One-pointedness. So basically, Passa contact, Vedana feeling, Sanya perception, Cetana intention. Ekagata is one-pointedness. So I would say, although one-pointedness is a part of Kusala things, why it was common to all the other Cetasikas, there's a reason. Even if we do a bad thing or a good thing, there is a sort of Ekagata, one-pointedness. Let's say if you want to be curious about somebody who's doing really bad thing, he has a sort of one-pointedness towards those bad things too. Also with the good people, because we know one-pointedness is what you should have for good things too. So it is normally present in all the thoughts, right? So you need to understand that we need Ekagata, one-pointedness for everything, every chitta. So it could be moral, it could be immoral, wholesome, unwholesome. So when we go into the basic categories of interpretation of Ekagata, the characteristic of Ekagata is non-wandering, non-distraction. Because when you have one-pointedness into wholesome or unwholesome chitta, you are not wandering, you are kind of ending up at that particular activity. The function is it unites the associated states, be that kusala, wholesome or unwholesome. Manifestation is peace, which is what you want. So this could be the peace of anything, and proximate cause is going to be happiness. And then we move on to Jivitindriya. So Jivitindriya is a life faculty. This is what we have a life. And it's twofold. It's a Cetasika too. It's mental and physical. So usually the mental life faculty vitalizes the associated Cetasikas, while the physical life faculty, what you call Jivitindriya, Kaya Jivitindriya, it vitalizes material phenomena. But basically, what we take here is mental part of the life faculty, Jivitindriya. The characteristic of Jivitindriya, especially the mental part, is to maintain the associates' mental states, and the function is making them occur continuously. Manifestation is establishing of their presence at all times, and the proximate cause is going to be mental states, the need of maintaining the mental states. Okay, so basically it is kind of the maintenance of the Cetasikas. You can see with the role of Jivitindriya. So this Jivitindriya also employs in all the chittas. The last one is Manasikara. So Manasikara means attention. So basically, Manasikara or attention is the responsible Cetasika for the mind's advertence to the object. Now you might wonder then what is the role of Vitakka? Vitakka does not play a role in adverting the mind's adverting to the object. What it does is it applies the object to the mind, or in other words, I would say, it helps mind to apply onto the object. So, but basically, adverting part of the mind is done by Manasikara and not Vitakka. So I would say Vitakka does the basic thing, and then, Manasikara does the basic thing, basic adverting, but Vitakka applies that basic thing into the mind. So the characteristic of Manasikara Cetasika is to conduct of the associated mental states towards the object. So it adverts, mental states towards the object. The function of Manasikara is to yoke the associated states to the object, and manifestation is confrontation with an object. So it confronts with an object, because without Manasikara, mind can't, connect to the object. And the proximate cause is going to be the object. So finally, it's the object. It could be whatever the object, Upasatta, Gandha, Rasa, Pottabha, Dhamma. So this is what we call Manasikara, but we also should understand that Manasikara, which is called attention, is inevitable compared to Vitakka, because Vitakka is not inevitable. Vitakka is a heightened state of Cetasikas, but Manasikara is very indispensable in the cognitive process. Let's go back to the 7 universals, which you call by Sambhajit Sadharana, before we move on to the Pakinnikas. Okay. Now you can see the ethically variable factors, which are called by Añña Samāṇa Cetasikas, and these 7, which we just talked about under 7 universals or Sambhajit Sadharana. The Cetasikas which are employed in all the thoughts: Phassa contact, Vedana feeling, Sañña perception, Cetana intention, Ekaggata one-pointedness, Jivitindriya life faculty, Manasikara attention. Let's move on to the next part, which is called Pakinna. Okay. Pakinna means miscellaneous. This means they are not employed in all the thoughts, all the chittas. They are only specific in certain chittas. Now, I think we could not discuss about the Rupavachara, Arupavachara, and Lokottara chittas. And in these 3 chittas, you can see these Cetasikas are mostly employed. The reason was these 3 type of chittas, they were not, very important at this point to all of you, but I will be discussing them at a later part, at a later time too. But we'll study the Cetasikas that are relevant to them too at this point. Vitakka, initial application of mind. Now we talked about what we call Manasikara, and Manasikara simply means something, Cetasika, which turns its mental factors towards the object. But Vitakka is applying those Cetasikas onto the object. So Vitakka does a greater part, but Manasikara is what happens all the time. So Manasikara is always employed, but Vitakka operates only under a certain special situation, circumstance. So Vitakka means initial application of mind, because there is a second part of Vitakka, which is called Vichara, sustained application of mind. Adhimokka is decisiveness, Virya is effort, Piti is joy, and Chanda is desire. Okay, so there are 6 occasionals. They are not always employed in all the thoughts, but they are only employed, they are only used in certain chittas, and I would say they are mostly used in the Rupavachara, Arupavachara, and Lokuttara chittas. So let me explain to you in great details of these 6 occasionals at this point. So they are called Pakinnakas in Pali, miscellaneous. So they differ from the universals in that they are found only in particular type of chittas, as I told you, Rupavachara, Rupavachara, and Lokottaras. They are higher thoughts, they are higher chittas compared to the Kamavachara ones. So the first one is Vitakka. It's called application of the mind to the object. Let's use the 4 aspects of each Cetasika. Characteristic part. The characteristic of Vitakka is to direct of the mind onto the object. So it directs the adverted mind onto the object. Now mind is adverting towards the object, but it is not directing towards the object. That is done by Vitakka, application part. The function of Vitakka is to strike at and trash the object. So it's striking at the object. Manifestation of Vitakka is the leading of the mind onto an object. So it's the leading nature of the mind onto the object. Proximate cause is object. So finally, it's the particular object which which is what the mind is trying to apply, right? So the object is the final thing. So there are 2 types of Vitakkas. Now we know Vitakka is a jhanic factor, right? If you can remember, there are 5 jhanic factors, but that's not the Vitakka which we talk about now. So this Vitakka is a normal type of Vitakka because it happens in all the minds of everybody. So, but when Vitakka is cultivated through concentration, it becomes a factor of jhana. So it's a higher process. So the normal Vitakka is not what we talk about here. Vitakka simply means the application of the mind towards the particular object. When the Vitakka is cultivated through concentration, it becomes a jhanic factor. It's going to be that higher state. That is when we call this particular kind of Vitakka as appana. So at that point, Vitakka becomes an appana. Appana means the absorption of the mind in the object. So I would say Vitakka and appana. So appana is the higher state of Vitakka. That is what we call the absorption of the mind in the object. And Vitakka is also recognized as a sankappa, a thought in the Sutta Pitaka. So there are different teachings, but when it comes to the Cetasika context, Vitakka is simply a Cetasika which helps mind to apply into an object. Vichara is what happens to the Vitakka level mind. So when Vitakka helps mind to apply into the object, then what happens? Mind can stay in the particular object. So we call it Vichara, sustained application of the mind. Characteristic of Vichara is continued pressure on the object in the sense of examining. So mind wants to examine the particular object by which the mind was propelled right? Function of vichara is sustained application of the associated mental phenomena to the object. So it's a sustained application. That means when the mind is with vichara, mind wants to sustain its application towards the same object. Manifestation is anchoring of those phenomena in the object. So it's kind of an anchoring that happens to the mind when the mind is with vichara. Proximate cause is the object. So that's where the mind ends up. And then adhimokha. Adhimokha means decision. So when the mind comes to a point with vitakka and vichara, now mind wants to release onto that particular object. So mind doesn't want to, hold on to that particular attempt. So mind wants to release at this point. So mind thinks that I want to make a decision. That's where we call decisiveness or resolution or decision. We call it decisiveness in the list here, if you can remember. So adhimokha, which means decisiveness. Okay. So the characteristic of adhimokha or releasing of mind onto the object is conviction, because your mind won't release onto an object without mind being convicted. The function of adhimokha is not groping. So it doesn't want to grope. It wants to release onto this particular object. The mind knows that this is where I want to end up. Manifestation of adhimokha is decisive. So mind wants to make a decision in this context at this point. The proximate cause is a thing to be convinced about. So mind knows that this is the place where I want to convince. There's an example given to understanding adhimokha. Stone pillar owing to its unshakable resolve regarding the object. So it's pretty clear, right? So stone pillar, because the stone pillar is very unshakable, and it is certain about the decision after. And then we're going to be talking virya. Virya means what you call effort or energy. It is also a cetasika. And we know that the characteristic of virya is supporting. At the point of adhimokha, you are making a decision with your mind, and then the mind wants to be energetic towards the particular object. So the characteristic of virya is supporting for the object, which the mind releases. Function of virya is to support its associated states, associated cetasikas. Manifestation of virya is to non-collapse, because now mind doesn't want to go away. So with virya, it falls onto the particular object. It doesn't want to collapse. The proximate cause is a sense of urgency. Now with virya, mind wants to be urgent in operating, towards the particular object. Mind knows that this is where I'm going to end up. I don't want to go back and forth. I really want to end up here. So then there's an urgency, a sense of urgency as the proximate cause of virya. So virya is a cetasika mental factor in this way. Piti is the fifth cetasika here under Pakinakas. So piti means rapture, or I would say joy too. It could be joy too. So the characteristic of piti or joy is endearing. Call it sampiyayana. So there is an endearing nature at that point. So when you are putting effort, and then what happens? You felt elated in a sense, so you are endearing at that point towards the particular object. Rupa Sabda Gandhasa Abhidhamma. The function of piti is to refresh the mind and body. So you want to refresh the mind and the body at this point with this piti cetasika. Manifestation of piti is to being elated, I would say elation, and the proximate cause is nama rupa, because you are elating nama and rupa, mind and body. You are elating nothing but nama and rupa. So piti is a cetasika mental factor, wherein which you use to enjoy yourself with a particular cetasika that we know in the previous section. With piti cetasika, you are basically elating, you are enjoying, you are relishing your nama and rupa. So whenever you feel that you are really happy, you are very jovial, that is where this cetasika operates within you. And the last cetasika that we're going to be talking under Pakinakas, called Kishanas, is Chanda. Now this is very interesting. Chanda has been translated by many people in different ways, but I think it's good to translate Chanda to be desire. But it's not the desire that we know in the philosophical context. Chanda at this point means kattukamyata. That means desire to act, because we know when we talk about nibbana, a lot of people say they like nibbana or they want to attach to nibbana. But in Buddhist teachings, especially in this context too, why there is a Pali word called chanda appears. The reason is we have to have kattukamyata chanda, or chanda towards nibbana. So we have a desire to act on nibbana. We have no attachment. We have no karmas towards nibbana. We have no asa towards nibbana. So the characteristic of chanda is this is a cetasika too, desire to act. So let's say you identify nibbanas, and then you have this desire to act on that. Function of chanda is to search for an object. So nibbana is not an object, but in this case, let's say if you have a chanda, then what happens? You are trying to search for that particular object that helps you, continue with your chanda desire. Manifestation is a need for an object. So when you have desire, you think you need to look for an object. Proximate cause is going to be the same object, the object of desire, which you're going to be using with kattukamyata chanda. So folks, I think you understand now. Cetasikas always arise, stay together, arise together, stay together, perish together, and take the same object with chittas. They are inseparables. But when we talk about the number of cetasikas, we know there are 52 cetasikas. There are 13 cetasikas in the first category. So they are called Añña Samāṇa. So they are mostly common to all the cetasikas, across the cetasika categories. Under that, there are two subcategories, as I told you here. Let me show you again. Okay, you can see here. So 52 cetasikas called mental factors, 13 for Añña Samāṇa, 14 for akusala, 25 for sobana. And today we only talked about this part, Añña Samāṇa. Añña Samāṇa means they are common to all the other cetasikas. So 7 sabbacita sadharana and 6 pakinakas. Sabbacita sadharana means these 7 mental factors, they are used in all the cetasikas, not even in Añña Samāṇa, but also in akusala and sobana. But pakinakas are what you call occasions. They are only used in certain chittas. So if you learn sabbacita sadharana and pakinakas, you have a better understanding of how these next up cetasikas normally operate with chittas. And then we talk about these 7 Sabbajit-sadharana. Phassa, Vedana. Phassa means contact, Vedana means feeling, Sañña means perception, Cetana means intention or volition, Ekaggata means one-pointedness, Jivitindriya means like faculty, Manasikara means attention. They are what you call universals. And then we talked about 6 pakinnakas. They are occasional, they are not used in all the chittas. Vitakka, initial application of the mind. Vichara is the sustained application of the mind. Adhimokha is the decisiveness. Virya is effort. Piti is joy. Chanda is desire. So with this teaching, you need to understand that our chittas are always operating with Cetasikas, especially with our chittas are always operating with Sabbajit-sadharana, because in all the chittas we see Sabbajit-sadharana. That means those 7 universals, but it's at some point, especially when it comes to pakinnakas, we see that those 7 occasionals are used. Those 6 occasionals, which are called pakinnakas, are used with certain chittas, especially with the Rupavachara, Arupavachara, and Lokottara chittas. I think that's all for today. So thank you so much. And we'll be seeing all of you next Wednesday with a discussion on Akusala Cetasikas. Thank you. Have a good night.